Hey everyone, this is Zevros with the arcade stick, and some time ago, PXN sent over the X8, which is a Mixbox style controller, and I thought it was okay. And recently, they were kind enough to send us over the PXN-0082, and this is kind of their budget entry. It's pretty small, pretty portable, and we'll see how well that goes, of course. But they also sent over the big brother, right? This is the PXN X9, and I'm going to be reviewing both these in this video, doing the usual methodology I have, which is give you some first looks or an overview, open it up, see what's inside, test it in the lab, does it do what it says it's going to do, and give you my thoughts on what I liked and what I didn't like, etc., etc. Now, unlike my other videos where I've reviewed combined products, we're taking a new approach where I'm going to review one at a time. So if you're not interested in the 82 or the X9, you can just skip to that section which is relevant to you. Otherwise, we're going to get started with the 82. And as always, yes, these products were sent over by PXN, but my opinions are my own. All right, let's take a look at the PXN-82, just do a quick overview itself. So it does have an attached cable, and I did add a Velcro wrap because I find them very useful for keeping cable mess under control. Anyhow, let's take a look. So we have, standard stick, buttons, but these are laid out in a really funky way, like the face buttons, X, Y, A, B, they're in here. Whereas L1, L2, R1, R2, yeah, so this is a very non-standard layout. I imagine you could rewire these if you like, but will the average consumer want to do that? Anyhow, up top we have a status display, which is pretty nice for this price point. We also have a stick select, also nice for this price point. Turbo and macro, everybody's favorite tournament band features. We have turbo LED as well. Also, home share options, L3 and R3, which is pretty good, I feel, for a thing at this price point. It is reminding me of a certain flight stick controller for the PlayStation, so there is that, just the way these buttons and stuff are laid out. But that's not a bad thing. So it does have this rubber-esque little wrist pad, though how practical that is, it feels like I have to do this, kind of, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, that is a micro switch stick in there. I mean, it is, basically a clone, low budget. It doesn't feel particularly great, but in testing, it does work reasonably well. Buttons are clicky, noisy, and yet mushy at the same time. They're not spectacular, but at this price point, I kind of expect that. Anyway, let's tour around the sides. Nothing here, nothing there, nothing there. We do have a pass-through port here for plugging in. Maybe an adapter might work. I don't really have the means to test. However, this is usually for plugging in a PS4 or Xbox One controller, so you can play on those systems, which at this price point is a pretty good feature to have. And the bottom is something I've dreaded for years, ever since having QuickShot controllers that had all of these all the time. Suction cups. Now, they weren't horrible when I play tested this a little bit. They might leave marks on your legs if you play that style. But, yeah, on a smooth table surface, they're actually pretty sticky for now. Can't say how long they'll last. I would probably, if I was going to use this long term, replace it with some proper rubber pads or grip tape, but that's me. Otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much the overview for the 82, so let's move on. Let's get some dimensions on the PXN arcade stick. So, across, we are looking at about 9 3/4 inches, or about 250 millimeters, a little less than that. At its widest point here, we're looking at about just shy of 7 inches, or about 178 millimeters. And then width-wise, we'll try and include the suction cups, but this is tricky to hold. All right, it's It's not that wide. I'd say it's a little, probably about 1.75 inches with the buttons or so, and about 45 millimeters. And the joystick is adding another 2 inches on top, about 50 millimeters. So all in all, it's small, but makes it nice and portable if you need that functionality. Let's get a weight on the PXN arcade sticks. I'll try and put the cable up here just to be fair. 1 pound, 9.1 ounces. Yep, it's a pretty light boy. That's what I expected. Let's go ahead and open up the PXN arcade stick to see what's inside. Maybe we can get away with replacing these buttons if we want to in the future. Maybe even the stick. Now, as always, I do recommend when you're working on these things, have a towel or pillow or something soft so you don't scratch up your ball top or anything else. And I'm using a PH0 Phillips to get out these screws here. Now, they're hiding under the suction cups, one there, one there, one there, and there. So they're a little sneaky. Otherwise, it's nothing really complicated to do. A PH1 probably slightly better, but there you go. I recommend, as always, you have a cup, dish, tray, whatever to hold your screws. And when you're pulling this off, be very careful because remember that USB pass-through? Yeah, it's right there and it's attached via ribbon cable, so don't go and tear that or something. You don't want that. Anyhow, we have snap-in buttons, and I'm surprised to see they are not soldered on. They actually are using JST PH connectors on their own kind of custom little sub-PCBs here to connect back to the main board. Again, our pass-through USBs connected there. I'm not sure what this guy is for, but it does route somewhere over there. It's very strange. Kind of hard to follow. Not sure what the purpose of that is. There's another sub PCB over here that is, I think, for, yeah, it's got LEDs attached to it, so that's for your player LEDs. Makes sense given the position. All right, your joystick here, I'm actually surprised these are not soldered on connections. These are actual quick disconnects, so that's nice. Usually around this price point I start seeing soldered on connectors, shortcuts taken like that, and it's nice that that's there. There's another sub PCB here. I think that's for, yeah, the directional switch, so that makes sense. And it looks like there is a lead there. That may be what this is for. That makes sense. Okay. Anyhow, the other thing I'm noticing are we have support posts where the screw holes are, and also these here. So I'm anticipating that on the flexion test we won't see a whole lot. So that's good. It's an inexpensive way to support your stick enclosure here by having these posts. So that way you're pressing down, you're mashing really hard, it doesn't flex in and crack or something like that. Anyhow, the other thing I'm noticing is these are snap-in buttons. For one, if you wanted to replace these, I think you could with other snap-ins, Sanwa or Samitsu. However, you need to re-terminate them or solder them on. You have to clip these and solder it on, which is not the greatest. Take probably more effort than it's worth. And I'll bet if you got tired of the layout that's by default, you could disconnect them from this end and plug them in as a regular arcade stick would have them. So, I mean, if I were going to keep this, yes, that's probably what I'd end up doing, just so I don't have to remap everything in every game, and then when I use another controller, remap it that way. So there is that option. If you feel like, well, I don't like the defaults, you can always replug them over here. Okay, I think that's a pretty good tour of the internals where we don't have anything else too exciting going on, so let's move on. Next up, let's do some basic acceptance testing. I'm going to do some slide and pressure testing. So on the foam here, if you have something like this, you can see that there is practically no resistance. It's really easy for me to move. Of course, that's kind of what I expected. Now let's change that up and go ahead and stick it down. And the suction cups actually do work pretty well on a smooth surface here. Yeah, I'm not getting any movement. Now, over time, I can't say how long this is going to last, so there is that. And if you try and lap play this, you probably get those marks from the suction cups, so just be aware of that. Anyhow, let's do some pressure tests, so just to see if there's any bowing or vulnerable parts. As you can see, yeah, it's holding up really well. Those internal support structures, you know, making sure I am not getting any weak points really here. So that's very good overall.
Now that we're done with the physical tests, let's go ahead and check out the stick buttons as well as features here. So LED is lighting up on 1, that's good. Means we got a good connection as expected. And we're getting around pretty well. Let's do some tapping in opposite corners. Let's try some spring back. Okay, good, it's not. Alright, so the lever's at least competent enough not to spring back to another position. At least I'm not getting it to. So there's that. Alright, let's try the buttons. Alright, now let's try also the changing to the left stick, and it does test. Alright. That's working all right, so that's good. Okay, now let's try out turbo. Yep, it works about as like you'd expect. And turn it off. So macro is done by press there, L3, set that, then press macro again. So it should do that kind of quarter circle forward. And yeah, it just looks like it plays them all at the same time. So I may have to try this again. 1, 2, 3, and then macro. See, did I do that right? Yeah, it's kind of working. I mean, that's a fairly limited use, but, you know, also banned in competition. But there you go. Sharing options, there we go. I think I might have to unplug to turn off macro, so there's that. Or try out our L3 and R3 again, so let's do that really fast. Yeah, I know, it quit. Try again. Yep, those are lighting up, so that's good. Alright then. Looks like on a basic level, yes, things work, and alright, we can keep going. Let's go ahead and do a quick Steam Deck check. Now, this is the 82 connected up here. You will need a USB-A to C adapter to make this work. So it does move around in OS, no problem there. And we are getting a light indicating player 1, so that's a positive sign. Now I'm going to go ahead and start the game. So we'll see if it works in game. And while we're doing that, let's take a look at the depth we'll need. So I'm doing a very compact setup. This is looking to be about 9 inches minimum there. And I'm cramming this together just in case, you know, you're trying to play this on an airplane or whatever. And really your horizontal limiting factor is the Steam Deck at about 11.5, 12 inches or so. Now let's see if it works in game, and I anticipate it will. Just kind of remember these are L buttons and R buttons, not the face buttons. So yep, as you can see, we're moving around and I can exit. So stick and buttons work. I'd say this Steam Deck check is a success, and let's move on.
A couple minutes of in-game footage just to show you how this is going to go. So because of the weird mapping, this is like, you know, kind of over here. And I still have some of these L3 and R3 binds going, but how practical they are to reach in the middle of battle, I mean, you'd have to train yourself pretty well to just do that and not hit, you know, that. I don't know. Anyway, I do notice a lot that the way I hold a stick, my
hand has nothing to rest on, so I probably have to put something there if I want to play for long term. And if you do this in the lap, that's not practical at all. Alright. Now, do things work? Sure. You can tell how loud this is. And these buttons, again, they're very loud, but they're also simultaneously kind of mushy. So, yeah, I mean, it is a budget stick. It's kind of what I expect. Is it doing the thing? Sure. Am I liking doing it? Not so much. Up and okay, we can go back. I mean, I still like having the full option set up here. Now, how likely you are to, like, say, hit start, I don't think it's very much, but it is always possible. Alright, let's do the up. Alright. And so on. But yeah, you can see motions are working, chargers are working. Supers I don't feel very confident on, but they are coming out, so maybe it's just me. But yeah, I mean, I feel like you can describe this stick as serviceable, right? It's, you know, I'm hungry, but you know, I just don't feel like bothering too much. Let's just go to Waffle House. And here you go. So there's that. Again, I think the really thing that you have to get used to, or I won't like, is that your hand just kind of falls off and there's nothing to. You can kind of get a partial rest like on this edge, but not all the way. It's like if we extended this about an inch, it would feel better. That's all. But then you know, I know the idea is also to be compact, and yeah, so kind of balancing those two factors. I want to do a quick web review to see, you know, how does it show up in search results, what the website quality is like, are we going to get adequate documentation, etc. So let's go ahead and just hit up Google here, tell us all about the PXN. And nicely, the PXN-82 is the first result here. Now, PXN has multiple sites, so I'm going to have to look into this. Let's go into this one here, which is ePXN. And right away, we have, you know, just stuff. Okay, turbo macro, that's true, it does have that. Multi-platform, yes. It's not really mentioning that you need an external controller for some of those. So, okay. Rock game fighting experience. Okay, a little bit of, yeah. Curious that they mentioned King of Fighters 97 when I know that's popular overseas. I guess there's that. Non-slip rubber base, kind of true. You have suction cups. Yep. And has all that. Really, nothing terribly objectionable here. Nothing saying that, you know, PS5 compatible when it, you know, may not be. The only support item we have, though, is the user manual, so and that's very small print. Yeah, I have to zoom that in and such. Anyway, so there's no downloads, there's no really anything here. Let's see what's here, if anything. That's all driver stuff. Yeah, just a user manual, so there's no firmware updates available, so I guess that's not a feature. It's curious to me because PXN has another website, which is PXN Game, which I've been referred to before on searches. Anyhow, if you go in here to Arcade Stick, it is listed here, and it does have a price. And I think it's funny, by default, it'll have some generic cookie acceptance dialog. It's just, yeah, it's like they didn't quite finish the site. Anyway, so there's those things, but again, there's nothing that I think it's curious they mentioned Canucks and Dinosaurs of all things. That's a very niche beat 'em up.
Doesn't question answer, but yes, if I go to support here, payment and shipping and generic stuff, but troubleshooting, it's only for their steering wheel. So there's no dedicated section for the 82, which is disappointing. This needs to be cleaned up, really. Payment shipping warranty, I'm not really too worried about that. So documentation, but nothing objectionable as far as, you know, false claims or anything like that. Let's move on to what I liked, what I didn't like, what we can improve upon, etc. about the 82. Now, I'm going to keep in mind that it is a budget stick, and you should too, though, you know, I may have some wish list items, etc. So let's go into the first thing, and that is feature set and performance. Now, for this guy, I feel like it actually has a decent amount of features. I mean, you are getting, again, status display, stick select, turbo macro, a full set of option buttons, and pass-through on the back, which, for the price, again, I feel is pretty good. Yeah, the actual gameplay experience is not the best, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but you do have all the features that I like. I mean, macro, I could leave with that. You know, it's not for me, but turbo, I definitely like to kick back, and, you know, if I've got a shooter, again, I just like having it so I don't have to sit there and pound buttons. I'm not in my teens anymore, and just having that wrist relief of being able to just hold a button and shoot is really helpful. Alright, I kind of already mentioned it, but my negative for this segment is, well, the quality of the stick and buttons. They're certainly serviceable, so if this is like your first fight stick, you know, you don't want to spend a lot of money, I totally get it, but just be aware of what you're not getting, right? So these guys, again, noisy, but somehow mushy at the same time. So they're not great. It's possible you could replace these, I guess, but I think people that are looking at a stick like this are not going to plan to do that. The stick, I mean, it works. You know, it's kind of like it works. It's kind of like late night Waffle House. You don't really feel like anything else, so you grab this. I don't know. It's cheap and it does the job for a while. Anyway, stretching metaphors as best I can. Yeah, but if you came into this thinking, I'm going to get tournament grade parts, it's going to be the best fight stick ever, no, that's not going to happen. Let's move on to build quality, durability, stuff like that. In the pros, yeah, this is an injection molded plastic, so it's kind of that standard plastic feel, standard plastic advantages and disadvantages, but it feels like a relatively solid build. It's nothing, you know, you go beat someone over the head with, but it does, you know, feel relatively durable, right? So I feel it's passable. It's nothing exciting, but, you know, it gets the job done, kind of like the rest of the stick. One advantage is, because it is plastic, you know, I can kind of try and fingerprint smear, but I can't do it. However, that does have a drawback. I'll talk about that in customization, where, you know, you can't put art in. Alright, let's talk about things I don't like so much about the build. And, yep, you know what? What is with this weird button layout? I mean, I can tolerate the curve, that's fine, I'll adjust. But why are the buttons arranged this way? Is this just to mimic that old Flight Sim stick? Don't know. Anyway, yeah, you could rewire this, I mean, and be more standard layout, but again, I'm not sure that people that buy this are really going to want to DIY anything with it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, I don't know. So, yeah, you'd probably have to, you know, get these buttons out, move these over just so you can keep the color the same if you really want to do that, and then make sure they're wired to the right spots. And, you know, that can take some doing. So just make sure you label your cables so you don't screw that up, but it is doable. The other thing is about the stick. And, you know, I've complained about it enough, but it's not so much the stick as the size of the unit. Kind of makes my hand fall off and not feel that great. Like, I just can't rest it where I want to, which is a little disappointing. So in the effort to make this smaller and more portable, it's a little less playable. So I just have to be mindful to kind of, it just doesn't feel that great, and I do have small hands. I think if you have larger ones, it's even more not going to help you. The next area to talk about is customization, and this one's easy. You don't really have any. You could change the ball top, maybe add a shaft, I'm not sure. Possibly change the buttons, but there's no artwork layer. You could put stickers on, I guess. But otherwise, there's just not a lot of opportunity for joystick expression, I guess is the new term. Next area is portability, and yes, this guy is small and light enough to carry around. Obviously, you do have a lever, so you have to be careful with that. However, I feel like most times if you just want to carry this, you can do it pretty easily in one hand, under the arm, whatever approach works for you. So yeah, it is very portable, but again, for that portability, you sacrifice comfort. For documentation, I give it a solid I mean, yeah, it's documented well enough, but I had to do some digging as far as what the macro feature, how it worked, etc. Not that I like the macro feature, it just, I've seen older controllers with better macro functionality than what this has, and a lot of times people just throw macro on there to say, cool, I've got a feature, but what do you do? Anyhow, I'm satisfied enough with the documentation, I suppose. Finally, let's wrap up pros and cons with value. And I feel like for the price, if you're looking for a starter controller, you're not sure if you want to get into Fightsticks, this is not a horrible option. You do get a full set of option buttons. You get turbo, macro, stick select. You just get a funny button layout and not that great buttons and stick. If you're okay with that, then maybe this goes on your shopping list. All right, time to wrap things up with my final thoughts and my final two questions on the 82. And those questions are, who is this for and who is it not for? I'm going to start with the kind of negative camp, just so we can end more on a positive. So the first and foremost group that the 82 is not going to be for is pretty obvious. If you are looking for high performance parts, yeah, this isn't it. It's again a budget stick, so kind of faulting it for that is maybe a little unfair, but I do want to be upfront that my play experience on this was not terribly great. I've already talked about the buttons, the stick, etc. They just don't feel fantastic, though they are serviceable. So again, if you are that budget fight stick shopper and this is all you can do, then okay. I know it's a little unfair, but if you're looking for something that's more comfortable for lap play, I mean, this guy does an okay job, but obviously I got spoiled by the X9 being so big and being so very comfortable to play in the lap. This one, I mean, it does well on smooth tables, but you just have to deal with the embarrassment of suction cups. I don't know. The first group of people I feel the 82 is going to appeal to are those who actually want a fairly full-featured joystick. Now, these aren't really new or innovative features. Even the pass-through port is kind of done by now. I mean, Mayflash has been doing it for a while. The X9 has it. Even GP2040 is supporting, an iteration of it. So it's not really an innovative new feature, but it is a very nice feature to have if you want multi-system compatibility. So it's nice. I mean, this has turbo, this has macro, this is L3, R3. It actually has, switching between at least the left stick and directional pad and a player status LED. That's not something I'd expect to have all of these at this price point, so that was kind of surprising to me. I kind of wish some of these features made it over to the X9, to be honest. At least turbo. So, there's all that. Second on the list of people that the 82 is going to appeal to is obviously budget buyers. So, you just don't have that much money, you don't feel like you want to spend a lot on a fight stick. Yeah, $50 or so, and that gets you in the door. Now, are they the best parts? No, we'll talk about that later. But you've got something, right? And something to get started on. Maybe you mod the buttons later. who knows? And it can let you know, hey, I like this fight stick thing, or no, I detest this fight stick thing. The second group of people that the 82 might appeal to is those of you looking for a more compact lever setup. Obviously, this is probably one of the smaller yet still functional small lever setups out there that I've seen. I reviewed others that were not good. I'll just say that, at least stock. And this guy was at least usable, right? I could get out moves. I could go to my diagonals and have them work. Buttons work. I mean, they're not the greatest feeling, but they're there. So yeah, if you are really dead set on one of the smallest setups possible that doesn't trade off for quality as much, at least, then yeah, have a look here. So what are my final overall TLDR thoughts on the 82? It's inexpensive, but it has, ostensibly a good feature set. Once again, L3R3 turbo macro, LED player status, stick select, at least, to left and directional pad. That's not something I'd really think would come on a $50 stick. Pass-through port as well. I mean, that's kind of a good bargain on paper. It's just that, the body and the parts, yeah, they let it down. And of course, you kind of expect that. At some point, you do have to sacrifice something, and that's a lot where it gets sacrificed. So, if you're going to be taking fighting games or other arcade stick using games seriously, this isn't great. But it can be that little brother controller, or just a spare. I do try and find an application for most any product here, as long as it's functional, and it passes my test well enough, but it just doesn't feel great doing so. Let's do an overview of the X9. Now, if you look down here, you can see, yeah, this is a pretty big boy. And just for comparison's sake, here is the Cosmox R16. It's a fairly big leverless, but even it gets pretty dwarfed by this guy. If I move it over here, just so you can see how much more room it takes, you can kind of get an idea. So yeah, it's pretty big. You'll see that in dimensions. So starting off, you have a Sanwa JLF OBSF setup, which they always call tournament grade, etc. And it works. If you like Sanwa components, then here they are. If you want to swap them out, well, we're going to get into that in a few minutes. Anyhow, the layout is kind of close together. I feel like I have to squeeze 3 fingers there, and I can fit them. So it is a little bit close. If you like that, then great. If you don't, well, this may not be the stick for you. Anyhow, you can see that, yeah, we've got these translucent buttons. And why are these 2 gray? Well, I'll also get that in a minute. The artwork here is, it looks kind of shiny. Like, is this under acrylic? Can I change it? Not without a lot of peeling, because this is pretty much directly baked on. And I don't think there's an artwork template or anything like that, unfortunately. So you can't really change that easily. Anyhow, for options up here, we have home, stick select, and on-off for the lights. So if you have a situation where you don't have a lot of power, then you may want to turn off the lights just to save a little bit of energy. And you have a macro button, one of everybody's favorite tournament band features. And like I mentioned, these 2 gray buttons, these are what you use to assign macros. So if you want to use this for drive impact or whatnot in game, you don't want to use this. And I'll talk about the macro feature later on. Anyhow, I do want to reveal that yes, this is not a stock dust washer. I did put that in myself. I did add a shaft cover. I feel like it prevents the ball top from spinning off, so I definitely recommend that mod. It's very cheap and it's very easy to do. Anyhow, that's the top. Let's go around the sides. Now, just to show you on the sides, there's nothing interesting at all. There's nothing there. Up front, though, you do have some extra option buttons. Start select, basically, and your USB-C connection. I did note that in testing, USB-C to C did not work, and we'll show that later. it's kind of a bummer, but there it is. But up front, you'll notice there is a USB port for a pass-through device like Magic Boots, and there's also an audio port. So I believe that only works on PlayStation. I'm not sure. Anyway, but there's also this PXN logo button, and this is where the magic happens. So I'll show this off in internals more, but you do have a completely one press, open it up, and you can do work on it, which is super nice. So you want to store your cable, this is where it gets stored at. It does include a little screwdriver. We'll go over that more in internals. Anyhow, on the bottom though, it's a nice pad across the bottom. I like it. It's not 100% effective because it's just foam and not like a real rubber. But we get a nice serial number, so that's really cool. And there are little hooks for attaching a strap, so if you want to carry it that way, you absolutely can. Anyhow, as far as other items included, you just really get documentation. One is a nice thank you card, so appreciate it. This is in Chinese. I'm afraid I can't read it, and there's basic instruction manual. So that's pretty much all that's included inside the box besides the joystick, because well, everything else is packed inside: your cable, your extra buttons, etc. Let's take a look at the X9's dimensions. So this guy is pretty chunky. Not one you'll want to travel with, I don't think. It's measuring over 15.5 inches there, or about 393-ish millimeters. Widest points vertically, we're looking at just shy of about 11 3/4, or about 300 millimeters. Now width-wise, let's see if I can get it to stand. You're looking at, including pad, just shy of 3 inches, or about 45 millimeters. That's not including the lever, which is adding another 2-ish inches, or 50 millimeters. So if you plan on traveling this, you're going to need a fairly big, maybe specialized bag just to accommodate the joystick there, of course. And just because it's pretty weighty, this guy might not be the best choice for that. But let's take a look at the official weight. All right, let's see if we can get a weight on the X9. So this is a pretty big mamma jamma, as we just showed. And I'm going to go ahead and do a tare weight. So as you can see, it's reading negative now, but 7 pounds, 5.5 ounces. So yeah, it's not the heaviest stick, of course, but it is pretty, it is kind of that weight where if you have an all-day event or something like that, where you're constantly having to walk around, you're probably going to start feeling it. So just be mindful of that. Let's talk about the internals of the X9. So to get inside is actually really simple. You guys probably will like this a lot. All you have to do, push in on this button here and ply it upward, and there you go. It's really that easy. So contained inside by default, you've got 2 extra buttons here, and they're in a nice solid foam, so that's pretty nice. There's a little baby screwdriver. I don't know if this would be enough to remove anything there, or I guess this is for plying this off, but it doesn't seem big enough. Well, yeah, I guess it'll work. So if you need to get access to your buttons, that can kind of do it, but I'd recommend something a little heavier duty. And then it has a place to store your cable. So, oh, and I really like this touch. An actual Velcro cable wrap. Thank you. That's actually a really nice touch. So let's stash that back and take a look at the top. Now, you have a standard sandwich JLF over here, and you have kind of a connection here for this panel that lights up. So you can see that goes down here into the mystery bay. I think we may need to open that up, but otherwise these look like they're snap-in buttons. But let's go ahead and get that removed so we can actually dig deeper. Okay, I have that PCB unscrewed, and it is a PCB. So we're using snap-in buttons, that's fine. And I think if you want to replace these with screw-in buttons, it should work, though this being a little close worries me. It might still work if you hold the ring down and then screw it in from the top. So that should be fine, but all the others, I don't think we'll have any problem getting screw-in buttons to work here. So if you have that concern, I wouldn't worry too much. It should work. Okay, I'll get this bolted back on, but yeah, this is just a lighting panel and it's awkward to see, but I can feel little diodes on there. So that's what that does. It's not really going to show a spectacular show. It just turns off or on, really. Pretty basic stuff. I do want to get in here to take a look at that, so let's go ahead and get that open. Okay, I know this is kind of hard to see because the cover is, well, stuck in between. But this is obviously their own PCB, and here's our main buttons and joystick connection right there. This goes out to the USB front panel. It looks like there are solder joints for X, Y, R1, R2, yeah, all the front panel buttons. So if you wanted to manually solder something there, I guess you could. Not that I'd recommend it. Anyway, there's a ribbon cable. This goes out to the top option panel, so these guys here, let's open that back up, and then this looks like it goes also out to here at the front, so there's that. There's also a connection that runs down here to the piggyback USB and headphones, so there's that, and that's connecting right here, right at the top, which is, I know, very hard to see. So it's doing a lot of duties here, and you know, that's that. There's nothing too exciting there. Obviously, you're not getting a Brook, you're not getting a GP2040. This is their own kind of closed source board. I'll have to see what the update process is for it, if any. So that's pretty much the internals. I don't think there's anything too exciting here. You have, you know, your control board here, which is routed up to here very nicely, and back to your USB and headphone jack here. You have storage for your cable, some spare buttons, even a little screwdriver, though again, I wouldn't count on this for doing much. You may, let's say one of these buttons goes out and you need to replace it in a hurry. At least you can pop this open very quickly, but getting past this LED PCB, you know, might be an issue. You know, you might be able to cheat it, at least not for one, but it's dicey. Maybe you can somehow, so I can press one tab from there. Yeah, I can get these edge ones out, maybe, and then I don't need to remove this, but if you have, say, this button die, that might be a little tougher. Yeah, I cannot, there's no way I can get to that with just my fingers, so I'd need either a poking tool to come in from the top or a better screwdriver to remove these 4 bolts and give me access. So there's that. Overall, it's a pretty nice package. You have a pretty clean, it's, you know, obviously these are not wire wrapped or anything like that, but they're also not going anywhere. And this seems to suggest you could put a deeper lever, such as a, you know, when it's Mitsu's are, you know, taller, but I cannot say how many millimeters of clearance you might have. So that might be something that PXN has to answer for us is, okay, how much space is between here and the top plate there, or something like that, so we can know, you know, what levers will fit. For example, a Nobi lever is quite a bit deeper. I think it's like 40-some millimeters, whereas this guy, I want to say 34.5. I'll probably get that right in the text here. Anyway, so there's your insides of the X9. Let's move on. Let's do some basic acceptance on the body here. So I'm just going to do some pressure tests to see how much flexing we're generating. And there's a tiny bit, that's kind of expected. So, can't really fault anything here. It feels pretty solid. Let's do some slide test. So yeah, I can still move it, of course, but it is taking a fair amount of effort between the weight and the foam pad on bottom. And if I take away my desk mat, what happens? It's slightly improved, but not dramatic. So yeah, it'll move enough. I'm not concerned. Like during normal gameplay, if I'm pretty well thrashing it, it's still pretty stationary. So that's what I want to see. Okay, let's just try that sort of thing. Yeah, otherwise, I think we're looking good so far. Now that our flex and slide tests are out of the way, I do want to do one other quality check, and that is, will this spin? Oh no. Yep, the ball top is coming up off at the fingertips. Now luckily, this is an easy fix. You just need a flathead screwdriver, and opening this up is super easy. So I just insert it into the bottom of the lever and then hold it while I turn it on and lock it in place. So that should work, but as shipped, it is loose, so that's something you may need to check for and fix. Anyhow, let's go ahead and make sure our lever is working. Okay, it's lighting up on both testers here, so that's good. Just a quick Hadouken in both directions. All right, we're good. And then, okay, that looks good. Let's turn our buttons one at a time. I do have the LEDs on for what it's worth. Let's try some chords. Yep, those all work. Hold, release, hold, release. That's good. Okay. Let's just mash them all at once. Yep, that's what I expect. Okay. And that's looking pretty good. All right then. Let's try the left stick toggle. And you can see the circularity is lighting up, so that's a good test. And why not try it on right stick mode just to see if it lights up? And yes, it does. So that's very good. Okay, let's turn that off. And test our option buttons. Yep, they are lighting up just fine. So everything here is working about as expected. Let's do a quick Steam Deck test with the X9. Now, I'm connecting this with a C to C cable, and as you can see, it does not work. So unfortunately, yeah, by itself it doesn't seem to work, but there are some workarounds which I want to show you. The first workaround is you can see this USB hub I have attached up here with power delivery and an A to C adapter. I'm able to make this work. Now this is a C to C cable, so if you use the included C to A, you don't need this converter obviously. But as you can see, it does move around. One other thing that works if you don't have this hub is if you have a Magic Boots adapter, or if you use a PlayStation 4 or Xbox controller pass-through option, it will also work, but when I tried the Magic Boots, the buttons got mapped really weirdly. Anyhow, let's go ahead and show what it looks like to load a game and get some dimensions while it's doing that. So obviously this is not something you want to use in a very compact environment. I'm placing these as close as possible, and I'm still about 14.5 to 15 inches. And of course the X9 is much wider, so that's really the constraint horizontally. Again, it's 15.25 inches or so. So there's your main issue there. Generally you'll know if this is going to work with Steam Deck if this is able to light up or not. So by itself, without the power delivery in the USB hub, it does not want to work. However, with that, it does seem to want to, though it may be finicky. So as you can see, it's working in game as well as the OS. All right, that pretty much wraps up our Steam Deck testing. It's kind of a fail by itself, but with a little extra help, it can work. A little in-game footage. Again, I like using Honda because I can test motions like that as well as charge motions. And there you go.
this is pretty much a, we've got a JLF and OBSF, so if you like that kind of setup, then here you go. It's configured in a pretty standard Helix configuration. So, and you got that light touch Samla feel on all the buttons. I can kind of rest my fingers on here. Mine are pretty light. If you have heavier fingers, it may not be as tenable. I just want to, there we go. So I'm a little overzealous with that. I must have taken away that combo. Nope, that works. Anyway, yeah, if you're used to a Helix layout, if you use JLF and OBSF, then you're going to feel right at home here. These are a great start for most players. And, if you don't like how light touch these can be, you can either swap them out, or JLF has tons and tons and tons of mods for it. You can switch it out for the JLX if you want. One upgrade I would suggest making right away is getting a shaft cover for this guy, just because you can technically hold on to the shaft and easily unscrew the ball top. You don't want that to happen during gameplay if you kind of grip here and that eventually comes loose. So I do suggest the shaft cover. It does require, unmounting the lever to install properly, or you can install the link, which also, helps to unmount. But there are tutorial videos out there. I put some out on how to mod your joystick. So, if you're worried about doing that, don't be. It's not very hard at all. All right. So yeah, if you like that kind of standard JLF OBSF feel, then this is going to be the stick for you. All right, just to kind of take a holistic approach here, I do want to evaluate the website and see if there's any false claims or anything like that for the X9. So we're going to do, I've got a private window here, so it's like I've never searched before, and you can go away. And you can go away. All right. So I'd like to see it within the first few results, and yeah, it's number 2, so that's probably pretty good. It'd be nice to get a number 1, but it's, what can you do? And let's check out. So we do have, yeah, that's all true. That's good. That's fine. All right. Yep, that's all included. So that's all correct. Yep. So we're not saying that it's super fast or past PS5 compatibility or anything like that on here, which, okay, good. Sometimes we get a little murky there and I don't like that. Let's check out their support page. So the support immediately goes to contact us, which, okay. But we do have some troubleshooting for the wheel. And do we have anything else? Nothing. So it'd be nice to see separate pages for different support products. Otherwise, I'm not seeing much here. Otherwise, it's payment and warranty. So I don't think they have firmware updates for this come out. So you get what you get. Otherwise, a little bare bones here.
Let's get into what I liked and didn't like so much, and what we can improve upon on the X9, starting with build and build quality. Now this is pretty much like the old Tournament Edition sticks. I mean, the form factor is very similar. I had a friend over with one of their sticks that was the Tournament Edition 2, I believe, and it was, oh wow, that's a lot alike, down to the front buttons, etc. So if you were a fan of the old T2 sticks and you want something similar, maybe give the X9 a look. So what are the things that I liked about the build? I mean, it's a very solid, yeah, it's plastic, sure, but it's a, decent plastic. The pop open, I mean, you want to mod this guy, you want to see why a button isn't working, replace it. It's just that easy. It's one touch, no screwdrivers needed, no fussing with screws. You just don't need to do that. So that's a really nice touch if you feel like you like to tinker. It's also a great way to store your cable and have everything and just ready to go. Now, could you add, say, the Link EX and then store your ball top in there? Sure, you might just need something to keep it clipped in. This doesn't really have anything for that, but this way you could still keep everything in one central location. So that's nice. What else do I like? I think the overall, stick and buttons pretty good. You're starting with SAMWA parts, which works for most people. If you have something against SAMWA, obviously you can replace that. It's not too hard. So it's very customizable. I don't know exactly how deep inside here it is, like in terms of like down to the millimeter. That might be a deciding factor for those of you who want to use K-levers. And yeah, so just be mindful of that. Now, some things I found were kind of middling is just the LEDs. They're either on or off. I'm spoiled by 0082 and other products that have per button lighting, RGB lighting. So this is kind of a meh, but I'm not playing a game to have lights go off. So, okay, I think I'll leave it. The bottom pad is fine. It's nice that it's there. Maybe it's not as sticky as it could be, as other materials are. If you are worried about sliding, then yeah, there are better choices, I guess, but it's not the worst in the world. Really, the only thing in build and such that just kind of cheated me off was the included screwdriver. Is just it's not a thing I would want to use, so it's kind of useless, really. It's just a tiny little thing, and I don't think it'd ever be able to remove much of anything. I tried. It's painful to use. I'd just recommend having a Leatherman tool on you in case you really need to take something apart and do some failed maintenance. So what things about features and performance do I like or feel like we can improve upon? Well, first, we do have a pass-through, so you can plug in that external controller right down here. I don't know if it's in the most not awkward position, because it feels like you have to put it down here, and if you have this in your lap, that's going to feel weird with possibly a cable jutting against you. I don't know. It's not great. It is nice having a stick select for those games that might need it. For example, Street Fighter 6. I go back to this a lot. If you're trying to view your model while you're customizing it and you have to switch to right stick, then there you go. You can do that very quickly, very efficiently, so that's very nice. What are some things, though, about the features and performance that I don't like? Well, I think I've said it before. I would trade macro for turbo in a heartbeat. I just don't find it useful here. More and more games, modern games, support mapping, drive impact or dash or whatever to a button in-game, which is legal, versus macro, which is tournament illegal. So I would just skip the macro and replace it with turbo if I could. There's just not a lot of super exciting features here. There's no RGB. There's no display screen. Nothing exciting like that. It's a solid, decently built stick. So I don't, if you're looking for super exciting features, then okay. I don't think there's really anything here that's super innovative. It's something that people have done before, and that's fine. I do wish, though, there was L3 and R3. Now, there is a GP2040 mod that actually adds those in. I believe it replaces these two buttons with it. It does cost some money for the PCBs that you need to replace, so it takes some know-how to do, but it might be worth it to you. I think it'll also make the USB-C port, how it's only C to A works that way. It'll actually work with C to C, but I obviously don't have it installed, so I can't tell you. So otherwise, yeah, features, it's got a solid set of base features, I'd say, but nothing super exciting that's out of the ordinary. Up next is customization. And yeah, other than being able to change out the buttons, changing out the stick, there's not a lot of customization opportunities here, unfortunately. Yeah, this looks shiny, and yes, it picks up all the fingerprints that regular acrylic does, but it's not acrylic, as I mentioned before, and that's kind of a bummer, because, the button labels are fine, but I'd really like to be able to replace this artwork. It's just not for me. Maybe it's for you. This is one of those times where I'd like to recommend our artwork service from the arcade stick, but for this guy, I can't, unfortunately. So if you are looking for art for your stick, this is a good time to hit up the arcadestick.com and check that out. However, if you have an X9, I don't know if we can help you, unfortunately. So that's the biggest thing with customization here is just, yeah, no acrylic panel, no artwork layer. You just have this, which you'd have to scrape off, and I imagine that'd be plenty messy. Next up, let's talk about portability, and of course this is a full-size stick, so if you really need to go for a long weekend or even longer, this guy, I'm going to have to get used to the weight and size, just maneuvering it and being able to transport it, so you need a specialty bag, etc. Now the clips in the back to attach a strap can help, but yeah, you are going to have to adapt to being able to carry this guy around. Now it's not super heavy. I definitely have heavier sticks that are even a little bit wider. So it's not the most obnoxious, but it is something you're going to have to watch for. Up next in pros and cons is documentation, and I felt the documentation was fine. Nothing to write home about. I mean, the website's okay, but it's sometimes a little confusing to get around. You're trying to get to, the X9, and you end up on one of their racing wheels or something like that. So it could use a cleanup, but other than that, documentation's fine. There's nothing really exciting anyway about this guy that, other than maybe the macro feature, yeah, you probably don't need to worry about documentation too much. Let's wrap this up with a discussion on value, and again, it's kind of that balance of price to features. Now, PXN is usually a lower cost, discount stick brand, and you are still getting, a good platform, something that's easy to open. It's got a good weight, a good presence. You've got SAMWA parts, so that's good. And you otherwise have pretty much everything you need to play a fighting game, right? There's nothing extraneous, but there's nothing really super special. So I think the value is decent, nothing stratospheric. Let's move on to my final section for the X9. Who is this for? Who is it not for? And some final concluding TLDR thoughts. So I want to start with who is this not for? Kind of lean into the negative before ending on a high note, hopefully. And the first group I feel this is not going to be for are those of you who want to customize your fight stick. The artwork here is baked in. It's not really changeable without a ton of effort, so you probably have to go and scrape it all off and get the glue off, or you'd have to paper over it with stickers. So there's not really a good way to, make this your own if that's what's important to you. And if the default art doesn't really sell you, then yeah. So that's definitely a camp that I feel is going to pass on the X9. The second group of people that the X9 is not going to appeal to are, you need some extra bells and whistles on your fight stick. We don't even have L3 and R3 on here. There's no turbo. Yes, there's macro, but macro, I would, again, trade turbo for in a heartbeat. It's just so much more useful on shooters instead of having to tediously try to program macro. Yeah. Anyway, so if you were looking for something with really cutting edge features, innovation, etc., this really isn't it. The next group of people the X9 is not going to be for is if you want something more portable, more lightweight, a little less massive, to be honest. Yeah, the X9 is a big boy. It doesn't apologize for that. If you like something that's heavy, fits in your lap really nicely, plays well on a table, then it's great. But if you're looking for something to carry around all day at an event of some kind or, whatever, yeah, this guy is too big and bulky for that. So that's who I feel the X9 is broadly not going to appeal to. So how about who it will? The first group I feel the X9 is going to appeal to is, well, something I just kind of mentioned. If you do want a big boy of a stick that, has a lot of weight, has a lot of width, is just, big in your face, then here you go. The next group of people I feel will be interested in the X9 are those of you who are interested in modding your stick at least a little bit. So maybe you feel like, I want to be able to change the ball top, or I want to change the buttons. It's pretty easy to do that because you can just pop open the case at a moment's notice and get to work. Now you might need some tools to do that. If you carry a multi-tool, I mean, you can pretty much change the top with a flathead, on your tool, and it shouldn't be completely impossible to remove buttons if you need to. So that's kind of nice. If you feel like maybe you want to upgrade to a JLX, or change again the ball top to something else, change the spring, whatever, it's just a little easier. You save just that much more time versus having a case where you have to unscrew everything and blah blah blah. And also, again, it makes it easy to store your cable, so that's nice. So what are my final overall TLDR thoughts on the X9? I really want to like it, but I feel like it's just missing things that I want. So, first of all, no L3R3, can't customize the artwork. Yeah, things like that just bother me. No turbo either, which I already said it, so I don't need to say it again. On the other hand, it's got a very nice enclosure to it. I actually do like the body here. Yes, it's big. It's something I would keep at home, but it's got such presence and weight. I love big sticks. I have 4 18-inch AFSs, so if that tells you anything. So this guy, it's not bad. And the ability to pop it open is a really nice touch. Not a lot of sticks at this price point, I don't know if any do, can do that. So if that's important to you, being able to get into your kit, then hey, here you go. And it also serves utility as being able to store your cables. So it's not just lost in the wild, you stick it in here, you're good to go. But there's just a couple quality issues that are also holding it back. So in testing, I was, removing the ball top without much trouble, and that should be locked down. I don't know if that's just my unit or something else. I think a shaft cover might help with that, but also just tightening it properly so it's not going to just come off. Also, I noticed an issue, finally, where USB-C to C would not work. When I tried this on the Steam Deck by itself without any USB hub, it would not work whatsoever. If I plugged into my computer USB-C to C, it would not work. When I go C to A, it works fine, which is just kind of a letdown. I'm not sure if that's just a bug with my unit or that is a universal thing. So it's just weird to have a C to A only connection. Now that's not an uncommon cable or anything. It's just weird. I don't know. Like, why would you not allow that? I don't know if that's something with the control board or what. So that is, I feel, a quality issue. It's just not supporting proper C to C connections. Hey everyone, you know what time it is. I've got a kitty and you've just watched the video, so I'd really appreciate it if you follow the YouTube refrain, like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. If you found this material interesting, it was informative, helped you make a buying decision, he'd really like it if you left a like. You can tell, look at how much he loves it. If you have questions or just want to see something you thought it was in the video, didn't make sense or whatever, leave a comment, tag me, and I'll try and answer within 2 to 3 days. And finally, if you want to see more content from the arcade stick, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button. You know the drill. Come on, you've been on YouTube. I doubt any of you this is your first time. Anyway, Rocky says, do it or else.
The arcade stick.